What if regret isn't a punishment you have to avoid, but a kind of promise that you keep to yourself? What if regret isn't some sort of villain that you have to outrun, but a companion that is revealed slowly over time? If, when finally you look back on your life as some sort of poem, what if regret is just all the spaces between all the words? Those are the questions that I've been left since watching J. Kelly. I was invited to the London Film Festival premiere. George Clooney, Noah Baumbach, Greta Gerwig, Adam Sandler, and the rest of the cast were all in the room. And I left unsure of how I felt. This film stings with how sad it is. You know, every character is reconciling with the choices that built this entity of J. Kelly. Clooney's character, and perhaps Clooney himself, is a man at the twilight of his career looking back on what he's gained and therefore also what he's lost. There's a beautiful line in James Salter's Light Years.
For whatever we do, even whatever we do not do, prevents us from doing the opposite. Acts demolish their alternatives. That is the paradox. We had children, he thought. We can never be childless. We were moderate. We will never know what it is to spill out our lives.
J. Kelly carries that lesson throughout. You know, choice is painful, but owning it is the only way to live with yourself. Tonally, the film is much softer than I expected from Noah Baumbach. I love the Meyerowitz stories. That's my favourite film of his. You know, those overlapping dialogue moments where people talk past each other and communication itself becomes the kind of subject. Here, he trades that for something quieter, something more deliberate. It's sad, but it's beautiful. If Meyerowitz felt like people doomed to repeat their cycles forever with one another, J. Kelly feels like someone finally trying to learn from them, even if they're failing the entire way through. The performances are excellent, you know, but it's Adam Sandler who steals the show for me. You know, he fits perfectly into Baumbach's world. I do hope they continue to work together. They're 2 for 2 now. Clooney, meanwhile, is perfectly cast. It's hard not to read the film as some sort of allegory for his own career. At times, it feels like you're watching George Clooney reckon with George Clooney, but that's only because nobody else really could have done this role. Whilst the story centres on Clooney and Sandler, the rest of the cast is filled out beautifully. You know, Laura Dern is excellent because she's always excellent. You know, she brings this this quiet weariness to the film. She's more controlled than anybody else on screen. She says way more with her face, her gestures, and her choices than she does with her words. Billy Crudup has a fantastic early scene-stealing moment that, to me, sets the brilliant kind of emotional tone for everything that comes forth afterwards. And then Jay's family, from his father to his daughters, along with Jim Broadbent as the director, who gives him his first big break, all bring a kind of colour and texture that make the character's world feel genuinely lived in and whole. If I'm to mention any hesitations, it's that some of the emotional peaks feel a little sudden. They feel a little less earned than in Baumbach's earlier work. The drama arrives loudly, whereas before in other films it's crept up on you and suddenly you're in this sort of heat and you don't know how you got there. But maybe that's the point of this, you know? You can totally identify with it as a normal person, but this is a film about actors and about superstars, about people who live their crises on the stage, even when nobody's watching. That's most evident in these flashback sequences, which play out almost like scenes from a stage play that Jay, or Clooney himself, gets to both witness and inhabit. I think those moments are going to divide opinion, for sure. Some people might find them indulgent or strange, which I wouldn't really argue against. I would understand why you felt that way. I personally love them. They have a kind of theatricality that feels very deliberate, like the character is staring at their own mythology play out in front of them. Not the story of who they are, but the story of the way they think they're seen. And whenever those scenes ended, I found myself yearning for the next one. Overall, it's a deeply engaging, unexpectedly tender film. A few moments genuinely caught in my throat. Maybe it's because I'd recently rewatched Michael Clayton, but seeing Clooney here felt like seeing both the man and the character reflecting on everything he's built. This is not some soft George Clooney biopic. I don't want you to mistake that in this review. It's the study of a man facing the echo of his own decisions. And ultimately, we should all see ourselves in that at some point. This companion should reveal itself before the clock finally runs out. And at that moment, maybe it's not about staring regret in the face with sadness or morose, but accepting it for the choices that you made. Now, J. Kelly releases limited in theatres on November 14th, and it will be on Netflix on the 5th of December. If you can, see it in the cinema. It's a film about looking back, and so it deserves to be experienced that way.